You work 60 hours a week, you show up early, you stay late, you say yes when others say no. You follow the rules, you give up your time, your energy, and your health for the job, for your team, for the promise of a better future. You're loyal, you're honest. You take pride in doing things the right way, and yet, somehow, you're stuck watching someone else move ahead. Someone who cuts corners, talks more than they work, knows the right people, but doesn't have your skills. They rise faster. They live the life you thought you were earning. And you're left asking, what did I do wrong? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the real question is, what lie have I been told? From a young age, you were told that hard work leads to success, that if you try hard enough, you'll be rewarded, that if you just keep grinding, someone will notice and repay you. But what if that idea is broken? What if it was never true? Nietzsche, a German philosopher who challenged common beliefs, once said that moral labor, the kind of work praised for being humble and obedient, is not noble. It's a kind of spiritual trap. It's not meant to lift you up. It's meant to keep you stuck. And here's the hard truth. In a world where power decides outcomes, morality is often used to control the powerless. You were told that being good is its own reward, that if you kept your head down and stayed loyal, life would be fair. But life isn't fair. Life is competitive. Life is political. And the system doesn't reward good people. It rewards people who have control, not control over what they make, but over what they own. That's why a nurse who works a 12-hour shift earns less than a TikToker selling fake success online. That's why a blue-collar worker who breaks their back every day retires with almost nothing, while someone who plays financial games walks away with millions. It's not your fault you believe this lie. The lie was made for people like you, to keep you obedient, to keep you working, and to stop you from asking hard questions like, who benefits from my loyalty? Who profits from my exhaustion? Why does the system praise hard work and reward something else? Nietzsche never said you should stop working. He didn't praise laziness or selfishness. What he criticized was the idea that obedient work is always moral, that suffering without reward is noble, that being good means giving in. He called this kind of thinking slave morality, a belief born not from strength, but from fear. So, if you feel stuck even though you're doing everything right, you're not crazy, you're waking up. You're starting to see that the world isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was designed to work. The people who rise to the top aren't always the best or the most selfless. They're the ones who understand power, how to find it, how to use it, and how to stop tying their self-worth to what the system thinks of them. So ask yourself, what if working harder isn't the answer? What if the idea of moral labor isn't your way out, but your prison? Because unless you question that lie, you'll keep grinding while someone else keeps changing the rules. Let's look at the contradiction right in front of us. If hard work leads to success, why are the hardest working people often the ones barely getting by? Think about it. The construction workers who wake up before the sun and work until their bodies hurt. The nurses running on, empty, skipping meals, missing holidays. The delivery drivers, janitors, bus drivers, truckers, the people who keep cities moving. These are the people who live paycheck to paycheck, who worry about rent, who can't afford to get sick. Meanwhile, someone filming a get-rich-quick video in a rented Lamborghini is making more in one day than a nurse does in a month. You've seen this. You feel this. It's not some rare mistake in the system. It is the system. Because while labor builds the world, labor doesn't control it. The people who earn the most, CEOs, hedge fund managers, politicians, influencers, aren't sweating in the heat. They're not breaking their backs or missing meals. They're operating in a different world, the world of leverage, of image, of control. They don't just work, they position themselves, they influence, they own. Let's be honest, we've built a world where effort isn't what gets rewarded, power is. A world where owning money, connections, and attention makes more than making anything real. And this isn't an accident. This is how the game has worked for a long time, because no matter how honest physical labor is, it can always be replaced, outsourced, automated, or underpaid. But control over money, people, and ideas can be scaled. A nurse can treat one patient at a time. An investor can move billions with a single click. And the system rewards scale. Here's where the lie of moral labor becomes especially cruel. We've been taught that suffering is honorable, that pushing through pain is something to be proud of, that those who work hard in silence are the heart of society. And they are. But here's the truth. Morality doesn't pay the bills, praise doesn't build wealth, and sacrifice doesn't turn into power. While working people are told to stay humble and grateful, the elite are taught strategy, law, influence, and how to gain more control. They're taught not to serve, but to lead, not to suffer, but to win. They learn the rules, and then they rewrite them. So ask yourself, if moral labor is so noble, so important, why doesn't it come with power? Why are the workers we need most treated as if they're replaceable? Why does society talk about the value of hard work, but give the rewards to someone else? Nietzsche would say it's because the moral system was created by the powerful, not to free the rest of us, but to keep us quiet. It teaches obedience, not independence. It praises sacrifice, not self-respect. It celebrates those who submit, then punishes those who dare to question the system. The lie survives because it helps those at the top. It keeps people working, hoping, grinding for a reward that never comes. The promise of someday is the strongest chain ever made. So, the real question is, if hard work doesn't lead to power, what does? And more importantly, are you ready to unlearn the lie you were raised to believe? To understand how this lie took hold and why the world rewards manipulation over merit, image over effort, we have to dig deeper. We need to look at the foundation of the values we were taught to live by. For that, we turn to Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche didn't see morality as some universal good. He saw it as a tool, something created and used by those in power to protect their position. What we call morality, he believed, isn't truth, it's strategy. He described two kinds of morality: master morality and slave morality. Master morality comes from strength. It values ambition, courage, creativity, and the power to shape your own life. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't ask permission. It creates its own rules. Good in this system is what builds power, freedom, and growth. Strength isn't scary, it's a virtue. And virtue is whatever affirms life and possibility. But slave morality is different. It comes from weakness. It's created by people who can't win in a world ruled by strength, so they flip the script. They say humility is better than confidence. Obedience is better than control. Suffering is a sign of being morally pure. They turn weakness into a virtue, not because it's better, but because it's the only way they can feel proud in a world they don't control. And here's the trap. Once this new moral code spreads, it becomes sacred. People stop seeing it as a survival tactic. They start believing it's the absolute truth. That's how moral labor became something to admire. We praise the worker who never complains, who always says yes, who puts others first. But we don't realize that this story benefits the people who profit from their silence. Nietzsche would say, "You aren't rewarded for your morality, you're controlled by it. You're praised for being dependable, promoted for being easy to manage, given just enough to stay hopeful, but not enough to become free." Meanwhile, the real rewards, ownership, control, power, stay far out of reach. So why does this belief still hold so much power? Why do so many people still believe that suffering equals goodness? That sacrifice will be noticed, that loyalty will be rewarded? Because the story is beautiful. It gives meaning to pain. It helps people survive unfairness without challenging it. Slave morality lasts not because it's right, but because it's comforting. And comfort is a powerful drug. But Nietzsche didn't write to comfort people. He wrote to wake them up, to help them see the truth and deal with the freedom that comes once you stop waiting for life to be fair and start creating your own path. So the real question is, not just why we were taught to suffer in silence, but who gains when we do. If the system is so obviously rigged, so clearly built to reward power instead of effort, then why do so many good people still believe in it? Why do millions of hardworking people still chase a promise that almost never comes true? The answer isn't just money, it's mindset. It starts early, long before your first paycheck. From childhood, we're told that life is fair, that good things happen to good people, that justice will win. Stories, cartoons, school lessons, they all repeat the same message. If you do the right thing, you'll be rewarded. Be honest, be kind, work hard, and in the end, everything will work out. But there's a problem. Psychologists call this belief the just world fallacy. The idea that the world is fair, that effort equals results, that what you give will always come back. It's a beautiful idea. It gives people hope. It helps us make sense of pain. But it's not true. And in a world built to reward power over principle, clinging to this belief isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. Because while you're staying late, fixing problems you didn't cause, someone else is learning how to play the game. While you're being polite and picking up the extra shift, someone else is building connections, learning leverage, figuring out how to win. You think you're being moral, they're being strategic. And in this world, strategy wins. That's why the engineer keeping the servers running gets laid off, while the PR executive with political connections gets promoted. That's why the nurse loses her weekend bonus, while the hospital spends more on advertising. You were taught to follow the rules. They were taught how to bend them. And here's the cruel part. The system doesn't just fail to reward hard work. It uses your belief in fairness to keep you in place. The longer you wait to be recognized, the easier you are to control. Because people who believe in justice don't fight back. They keep waiting for fairness, waiting for someday. But someday never comes. This isn't just about income, it's about insight. It's about realizing that if you keep following the wrong map, you'll never reach the right destination. The rules you were taught weren't made to create strong, free people. They were made to create good, obedient workers. Because the people who made the rules, they understood the game. They just needed you to keep playing it. So if the world isn't fair, if doing the right thing doesn't lead to success, what does? And more importantly, how do you survive without becoming ruthless? How do you move forward without losing your soul? The answer isn't to abandon morality. It's to stop worshiping it, to stop treating sacrifice like strategy, to realize that good intentions are not a plan. In a world built on power, understanding power is part of being good. When you open your eyes to the truth, that fairness is not a law of the universe, but a story designed to keep you quiet, then you can finally begin to write your own. Not a story of blind sacrifice, but of conscious strength. Not obedience, but ownership. Not waiting for the world to change, but learning how to change your place in it. So, what do you do once you've seen the lie? Once you realize that waiting to be rewarded for your obedience is a dead end, you don't throw away your morals. You redefine what strength looks like. This is the mistake many make when they first wake up. They think the only alternative to being exploited is becoming heartless. But Nietzsche didn't preach cruelty. He wasn't telling you to abandon integrity. He was telling you to stop confusing submission with virtue. His solution wasn't to destroy morality. It was to overcome the morality of weakness, to become someone who doesn't just follow rules, but writes new ones, someone who doesn't need permission to live with purpose. In Nietzsche's words, that person is the Übermensch, the overman, not a tyrant, not a villain, but a fully realized individual, a creator of values, someone who walks away from systems that no longer serve them and builds something better in their place. The Übermensch doesn't sit quietly, hoping to be seen. He defines his own meaning. He doesn't wait to be promoted. He creates impact on his own terms. He understands the system, but he isn't enslaved by it. He knows when to play the game and when to change the board, because power isn't evil, it's essential. Not power over others, but power over yourself, your direction, your destiny. You've seen these people in real life. The entrepreneur who walked away from security to build something bold, the investor who turned rejection into innovation, the creator who stopped asking for permission and started taking risks. Think about Elon Musk. Fired from his own company, dismissed as reckless, until he built an empire fueled by vision, conviction, and a refusal to be ruled by fear. What separates these people isn't just talent or luck, it's mindset. They didn't wait for the system to validate them. They stopped asking, when will they see my worth? And started asking, why am I giving them that power in the first place? That shift, from waiting to creating, from submitting to owning, that's the path Nietzsche pointed to. That's what it means to step out of the cage of moral labor. But here's the hard truth. Escaping that cage means letting go of something deeply comforting, your attachment to being seen as good. It means being willing to disappoint the people who benefit from your silence. It means standing alone, for a while you build something new. That takes more than confidence. It takes courage. Because true strength isn't about domination. It's about authorship. It's about writing a life that aligns with your real values, not the ones handed to you by a system designed to keep you docile. This isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming sovereign. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped waiting to be rewarded and started rewarding yourself with the life you actually want? What would it look like to stop asking for a seat at the table and start building your own? You don't have to become ruthless, but you do have to become responsible for your own power. Because once you realize the system won't save you, the only path forward is to stop being a servant of it and start becoming the author of something greater. So, what does action look like after the awakening? After you've seen through the illusion of moral labor? After you've stopped waiting for fairness? After you've chosen not to abandon morality, but to reclaim your power? It starts with understanding this. Kindness is not weakness, but strategic kindness, that's strength. Too often people confuse being good with being passive. They think saying yes, avoiding conflict, and putting others first makes them virtuous. But Nietzsche would say, morality without consciousness is just obedience in disguise. The goal isn't to become cold, it's to become conscious, to move through the world with a moral compass and a survival strategy. Strategic kindness means knowing when to help and when to walk away. It means reading people, not just trusting them. It means understanding context, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to strike. It means you don't say yes to everyone just to be liked. You say yes when it aligns with your goals, your truth, your strength. Because here's the truth. Not every job deserves your loyalty. Not every leader deserves your trust. Not every opportunity deserves your time. You must become someone who knows when to walk away, who recognizes when a situation no longer serves them, and has the strength to leave. Leaving is not failure. Sometimes it's the beginning of freedom. This is where power comes in. Not as something you take from others, but as something you claim for yourself. Power to create, power to say no, power to build systems where you're not just earning, you're owning. Where your energy doesn't just fuel someone else's machine, it fuels a mission that reflects your values. That might mean starting your own business, building a second income stream, or learning how influence works, not to deceive, but to defend your vision. It might mean learning negotiation, setting boundaries, saying, I won't do this anymore, and meaning it. These aren't betrayals of your morals, they're expressions of your maturity, because if you don't learn how to play the power game, you will always be a pawn in it. But if you do learn, you don't have to lose your soul in the process. The key is to use power as a tool, not a trophy. Let your ethics guide your direction, but let strategy carry your decisions. Nietzsche put it simply, power is not evil. It's the will to become more than a servant, more than a cog, more than just the good employee. It's the will to become the author of your own worth. And you can't do that if you treat morality like a cage. You have to treat it like a compass, one that points to your true north, not someone else's approval. So, no, don't throw away your principles. Don't become another cynical player chasing status for its own sake. But do learn how the game is played. Do understand leverage. Do recognize the difference between being used and being seen. Because the future doesn't belong to the obedient. It belongs to the clear, the conscious, the ones who merge principle with power, empathy with edge. Not the ones who wait for the world to change, but the ones who learn to change the terms of their own existence. If you grew up believing hard work was enough, that if you just kept your head down, stayed loyal, and did the right thing, life would reward you, then it's time to wake up. Not because hard work is worthless, but because hard work without power, without strategy, without ownership, will keep you stuck. The real man doesn't just labor, he studies the system, understands it, and when the rules no longer serve him, he writes new ones. That's the difference between surviving and leading, between being a cog in someone else's machine and becoming the architect of your own future. So, if you're tired of waiting, if you're done with the myth that sacrifice is enough, if you're ready to think deeper, act smarter, and live on your own terms, this is where it begins. Subscribe to discover the kind of philosophy that doesn't just explain the world, but gives you the tools to reshape your place in it, one idea at a time, one decision at a time.